Tyler Komis covers Ole Miss football for 247 Sports. You guys know I love 247 Sports. Inside the Rebels. Jordan Watkins, wide receiver. Niners took him 138th pick, fourth round, 5'11", 196, fifth-year senior, 4.37 40, was the 11th fastest 40 time among receivers in this draft. And you know him well. You saw his career, his whole Ole Miss career. He transferred in after 2 years at Louisville. Tyler, so what did you think of the 49ers taking Jordan Watkins?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Based on projections, I was kind of surprised at how high he went. I think a lot of Ole Miss people were, but I think his speed he really showed off at the combine. I think he took care of his body because he had some injuries throughout his Ole Miss career, a hand injury and a couple hamstring aggravations here and there, but really showed off that blazing speed. And I think he's a versatile player. He was Ole Miss's starting punt returner too when healthy for 3 seasons. And I think his production, he really couldn't have chose a better year to have a breakout year like he did in 2024. 900 yards, 49 receptions, 18 yards a catch, his career best for him, and 9 touchdowns. I mean, doubled his previous career best. So really good year for him, and took advantage of Trey Harris being out for part of the year last year. Ole Miss's real wide receiver one, but Watkins proved to be a reliable go-to for Dart plenty of times in critical situations.
Yeah, just looking at his snap alignments in Pro Football Focus, he in 2022 was 80% in the slot. In 2023 was 84% in the slot. And this past season was 29% in the slot and 68% of the snaps out wide. Was that the result of, you mentioned Trey Harris, was he hurt? Why the change in alignment for Jordan Watkins this year?
Yeah, I think a big part of that was Trey Harris's injury. He was going through a bit of a groin injury that held him out, especially towards the later part of the season. But Ole Miss also had a Caden Lee, more of their slot receiver, and Juice Wells. So it was a really stacked receiver room. So, I mean, like I said, Watkins' versatility really paid off for Ole Miss this year, and his chemistry with Dart also really helped him. So I think that's something he developing that quarterback receiver chemistry really helped him out. And even in the Gator Bowl, man, they threw a deep touchdown late. Lane Kiffin wasn't too happy about that and had to explain something to Manny Diaz. So just kind of the telekinesis with him and Dart there, and hit him deep in stride. And the game that really kind of put Watkins on the map, I think, was that game against Arkansas where he had 5 touchdowns, over 200 yards, broke a lot of single game records for Ole Miss, and they took advantage of a kind of a beat up Arkansas secondary, but I think he made himself a lot of money that day as well.
So if you score a touchdown that is beyond the line of taste for Lane Kiffin, you really scored a touchdown in bad taste. Huh?
Yeah, that is saying something.
Wow. So one thing he said, I should tell people because people might be watching. Trey Harris, I mean, people who are watching might want to know this. Trey Harris went in the 2nd round to the Chargers. I mean, this has to be, was this a record for Ole Miss players drafted? Warren Nolen, Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, Trey Amos, Princely, Emmanuel goes in the 3rd round. Jordan Watkins, Chris Paul Jr., a linebacker that a lot of Niner fans were interested in, goes in the 5th round. Was this a record for Ole Miss? Was this the most? I mean, they've had some really good drafts. Like the 19 draft with AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Dawson Knox, really good draft. But was this a record for Ole Miss?
It was in the 7-round era. It was the most players they've had selected. Back in, I mean, they almost broke the program record that was back in 1971. I think they had 9 players, and that was the year Archie Manning was drafted. So it's been a really long time since Ole Miss had a draft class like this. And a lot of Ole Miss people will probably tell you Jared Ivey was one guy they were surprised didn't get drafted. So yeah, record-setting year.
So we're talking about a guy that produced on a really good team, and this was a preseason top 10 team. I think they were 15th in the final CFP ranks, won 10 games for the 3rd time in 4 years under Lane. But it is a very different offense than this is not Pete Carroll, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, USC. This is the Bryles Baylor offense, and it was that conversation came up a lot with Jackson Dart, and I'm sure you saw. But Jordan was asked by the Niners media, what do you think the biggest adjustment will be and he said adjusting to this pro offense. So take us through, for people who didn't watch Ole Miss, how different is their offense from like a Shanahan offense, and what do you think the adjustments for him will be?
Yeah, I think there's the main thing with Ole Miss. There's a lot of RPO, a lot of, and I think, yeah, a lot of people are really harp on it, especially at the quarterback position, because they feel like the quarterback isn't really asked to do a whole lot, and there's a lot of predetermination. And I mean, I guess you could say that with that Gator Bowl touchdown that I just talked about. He knew he was going there. But I feel like the offense this year, they did bring in a lot of NFL staff. Joe Judge was in there as well, working with the quarterbacks and receivers. But yeah, I mean, prior to 2024, I think the biggest adjustment I would have said was him playing outside and kind of every position of the receiver room. But he kind of proved to do that in 2024. I was surprised as it was only 29%, you said, in the slot. As far as offense, though, I think, man, I couldn't tell you anything about Kyle Shanahan's offense. I know he's a genius and knows how to make it work. So I would think maybe the kind of the vocabulary and playbook, those kind of things might be a big adjustment for him.
So what take us through, like, how does Ole Miss communicate its offense? Is it hand signals? Is it one word plays? Because you're right. The Shanahan playbook is long plays, and there is a big learning curve for receivers in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it starts with snap count. They go off a clap. That's one kind of, I guess, communication thing there, as far as pre-snap. But I mean, terminology, I think there are some similarities. I just don't think the play call is as long, maybe. There are some hand signals. A lot is communicated to the quarterback from the coach, though, obviously. So, I mean, I couldn't get in. I'm not in the huddle, so I can't get in too deep. But yeah, I just think those are some things that could be a big adjustment for him. And I'm kind of surprised to hear that, though, honestly, because Jackson's been asked the same questions, and he calls it a lazy narrative about their offense and things like that. So I guess he's got the confidence, but Watkins maybe with a more honest answer there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the other thing I always say, like, especially like a situation he's in where you're brand new, you're a rookie, you're talking to the media, you feel like you have to give an answer, and it may not be. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what he's never been a pro before, so maybe in a year we'll look back and he'll be like, oh, I actually adjusted to the playbook well. But I don't know. We'll see. I do think you mentioned the Shanahan kind of, what does it look like? Niner fans have watched a lot of these highlights, Ole Miss posted highlights. And one thing that does look familiar to Niner fans is a guy in the slot making a house call. Like the 49ers, it's funny. And I talk about this a lot. Statistically, they hit a lot of explosive plays, but they're not generally over the top sideline go balls, right? Like like a DK Metcalf explosive. They are plays like we're watching, for those of you some people are listening to this podcast, but they are plays like this. I mean, if we watched every explosive play of the Watkins career, are the majority of them like kind of middle of the field catch and runs, or are they over the top deep balls?
I'd say you'd see a lot of both, honestly. Arkansas, a lot of deep balls. Other times you'd see it kind of coming from the slot and him using his blazing speed to get away. And 2024, he really showed that. Here's one against Arkansas, just over the top there.
I don't see his speed in half these highlights because he's so open.
Right. Yeah, I think that's another thing. I can't say I totally expected him to run a 4.37 or a 4.38 because, I mean, the in-game speed, I mean, maybe doesn't look as quick as it really is. Here he is in 2022. He looks pretty fast there.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I hate to say this, but that my take just watching the highlights was, oh, is he really a 4.37 guy? Because it doesn't necessarily look like it when I watch that tape.
Yeah, exactly. I think he was really set up well in that offense as well with, I mean, really just kind of a player that teams maybe weren't honing in on as much with, Trey Harris. And, when he first got here, it was really Jonathan Mingo, former second round pick, and Malik Heath, a guy with the Packers who's found his way in the league and still on their roster. So he's kind of flew under the radar throughout his Ole Miss career, except in 2024, really.
Well, that's not the worst, right? I mean, from a 49ers perspective, they've got McCaffrey and Kittle and Ayuk when he's healthy and Juwan. So it's okay. That's fine. They just need a guy to fill that role. All right, last thing. Blocking is a critical part of being in the Kyle Shanahan offense at every position except quarterback. Does he do it?
He does. I think he's a guy, and we've asked him before, he's a guy that takes a lot of pride in that too. Something that George McDonald and Derek Nix, had his previous wide receiver coach, who's now at Auburn, they would work on that a ton. And he seems like a guy who's always been willing to block, especially those SEC bigger corners.
Yeah. Oh, I can't do last thing without asking about Walter Nolen. A lot of Niner fan, a lot of mock drafts. Thought Walter Nolen could go at 11. He goes 16. Had you heard it? Did you think he was going to the Niners? And as a journalist, I shouldn't ask a two-part question. And what did you think of him going 16th? Like, did you think he'd go higher than that?
Yeah, I did think he was going to go at 11 to the 49ers. It seems like, a ton of mock drafts, especially the day of, and they got a lot right, especially, ESPN, NFL Network, whatever. So I was kind of surprised he didn't land there. I personally thought he was a top 15 talent probably in the draft, goes at 16. And I think Arizona is a good landing spot for him. I think he's got a lot of tools that a lot of guys don't have, especially at the college level. He needed 3 years, was always a really highly touted prospect, at every level. High school, the number one player; as a transfer, the number one player. So I think, he's a guy on the interior that can do a lot of special things. And we heard, some character concerns here and there, maybe a part of why he wasn't drafted as high as he should have been. And honestly, I got to tell you, at Ole Miss, the guy was really easy to work with. Again, probably a guy that was maybe a little too honest when he first got here. But I think a lot of I'm not saying those issues may or may not be true. I think just a lot of them stem from maybe his days at Texas A&M and in that kind of environment. I do think Ole Miss's culture maybe changed some things with him. But overall, we didn't see any character concerns over in Oxford during his 1 year.
All right, people have to understand that you are from Jersey, and I was just telling you before we started, I got a buddy whose daughter is at Ole Miss, and it sounds like there's a lot of a lot of Californians and Northeasterners showing up in Oxford these days, huh?
Yeah, that is true. We got a lot of, I guess, as they'd like to say, some foreigners, some Yankees, But no, it's great. And even the football team, you see a lot of guys from different backgrounds coming together, and they've done a good job of that. And I think you'll see a lot of the fans, especially the local ones, really want them to hit the recruiting trail and secure all the top guys in Mississippi before going out and maybe getting the guy from LA. But you saw that with Watkins and Dart, guys from different places just coming together.
Yeah. Especially once the portal opens up, although the portal's closed right now. Well, this is great insight, Tyler, man. I appreciate you making time.
Yeah, absolutely, guy. Thanks for having me on.